Hey guys, this is Loyota Review. We're going over these Season 14 support items. The first thing you really need to understand is what did they change with the starting item, because this kind of shapes up how the support will play and how it will go. So prior, as you know, we had two sets of items. We had AP and AD items, and then we had Targon based and then like Spell Thief based. Now they combined both of these items into one item, so everyone is always going to take the same item. There's no difference between anyone else. You're going to get the same stats. There's no AD, there's no AP, and since there's no AD and no AP, that means that you're getting a little bit less offensive capabilities, and this will continue to go into the next set of items, next like the improved starter items, because again, you don't get like the plus 40 AP or whatever. So you will feel that side for sure. But the difference on the reason why like you're not getting those extra stats is then once you complete the 1,000 gold quest, you get to choose 5 very distinct items that will enhance either your defensive capabilities, your buffing, or your damage. Now, outside of the stats being different, and of course, now combining the fact that you can hit a champion or you can kill a minion to gain gold for the quest, you can tell that the gold difference between these is a lot different. As you know, prior to like in like our current meta and even just general scope of most metas, the enchanter support would finish their item first over the melee support because they can hit them. The melee support can't traditionally just hit the range support unless they're playing really bad or the jungle like interaction is favoring the melee side, so he can actively go in having jungle support, and even if he loses a lot of HP, you have the jungler there and you can dive and things like that, right? So that outside of just that interaction, the range support typically finished it first. Okay, there are cases where the melee was able to outmaneuver the range support, not get hit that often, and then you could obscure, like basically get almost like evenish gold, and that was amazing. And keep in mind, the items that you completed from it were not like, it was basically just to get the wards, and you wanted the wards as soon as you can naturally because wards are OP. But um these items that you get now are significantly better in terms of like adding towards your gameplay. So getting the 1,000 gold quest done first is almost like, I don't want to say it's like a mythic level difference, like mythic level like item completion difference, but it's definitely like significant enough that you will see it and feel it. And to put it even into more perspective, when you finish your 1,000 gold quest, you don't have to go back to base to actually like complete the item. It'll just give you 5 selections here and you just select it. So if you complete it while you're in lane, that's going to be pretty rough. Okay. The next thing I need to say is, so it says you get 20 gold, right? Now I experimented with this and maybe I'm just not reading this right, or maybe like it's just not happening. But even when I killed a cannon, it was only 20 gold share. And if that's the case, it's gonna be really bad. Because again, you can't always go in as a melee player, right? And or maybe you just miss your shit or something like that. And so like if you're blitzcrank and all this, you miss your hook or whatever, you just have to wait. If you're not getting significant gold from minions and they're just hitting you, you're gonna be way further down compared to before, because before, you get 50 plus gold for killing a cannon, and that really helps kind of jumpstart like, your gold gains, right? Um, but if you don't have that anymore and it's just 20 gold flat, that kind of blows. So hopefully, you know, that's not going to be the case, but if it is, not good. Also, it did not seem like I was executing minions. And again, I was testing this on Janna. I didn't have a chance to test it on Alistar, and I'll probably make a comment by quickly testing on Alistar just to double check. But if it does not execute minions, that means you do not have opportunities to create, those situations where you can last hit the minions on a new wave and hit an item spike or item spike level spike and be able to fight the like Enchanter AD off the wave because of that, or even just fight for push in general. If that's gone, oh boy, we're gonna have a lot of issues. Like already the map is like favoring enchanters because it's harder to gank. naturally, ranged champions are more prone to being ganked compared to melees. So if that's the case, then they're just off to the races, and it'll just be Enchanter versus Enchanter, or like an ADC, like double ADCs facing each other, like Ashe, Varus, or whatever, right? And if that's the case, yeah, we're gonna have some issues. But outside of that, guys, so there's an 8 gold difference between these, so it's a significant difference to the first 500 quest. And then from the 500 to 1,000 quest, it's actually only a 4 gold difference, so it actually gets better. So one change I would love is like to make this a little bit closer. I don't think this should be so far apart. Just bump this up 4 gold or something like that. Make this a little bit better. And then this is not actually the item you'll have, but it is definitely like the holder item before you select one of these. And they all have the same stats. It's all 200 health, base regen, whatever. And again, when you complete it, you actually, 5 gold per 10, it's like reasonable, right? But the like actual actives, like the whatever, if it's an active, a passive, whatever that you get from it, is amazing. So let's get into it. So there's 5 options, and the first option I'm going to go over is the Celestial Opposition. Now, this is probably the best universal support upgraded item that you can get, that they have. The main reason is that, one, it's like think about Crown, right? So like we have Crown in the current state of the game, in season 13. That gives you damage reduction for a little bit when you get hit, and then it disappears, right? This does the same thing. It's 40% for melees and 25% for range. And then think about how Banshees works, and I'm giving Crown work the same way in the end. If you don't take X amount of damage, or you don't take damage for X amount of seconds, then you'll be fine. So it's every 15 seconds, right? Which is pretty quick, actually. Like, it's like you can basically have this up every single wave, like take a hit or take a poke damage. Now, and actually, if you think about melees, this is not really that great for like Leona or Alistar, like champions that have already built in high resist, or like spells that give them like just damage reduction, because I already have that, right? Like, I don't need more. I already have it. It's great for champions like Nautilus, who don't have the same defensive capabilities and are pretty prone to inting and getting like exploded. So this is like super good for a champion like Nautilus, right? So okay, so it benefits some very specific like melee supports who don't have this kind of thing. Think about even Pyke. Like, Pyke can have this item go in and do an aggressive engage and not actually instantly die in some cases, and that's pretty insane as well. Rakan, whatever, like, that is great. But then if you think about the range support case, it's like, okay, well, do I really care about having damage reduction when I'm staying out of like harm? There's gonna be, situations where you're just getting caught by random shit as an enchanter player, as a ranged player. Even if you're just playing things like Brand, Xerath, you're playing even like Caitlyn or something like that. If you get like an enemy lands like some poke, they land like a Syndra stun and they're like walking into you, this may save your life. And obviously, like, if you're playing Lulu or whatever, and like you're able to survive and still output like shielding and some slows and whatever, that's pretty insane. So naturally, like, this item is S tier. Like, straight up, universally, the best support upgraded item you could get. The next one is Slay. So this is like, if you slow or immobilize someone, the lowest health ally will gain health and a burst of movement speed. And it'll last for 4 seconds, and it doesn't say diminishing. Like, it's not like the movement speed's just gonna like slow down. It's just a flat 90, and that's amazing. Super good. But it says to the ally with the lowest health. And the issue I have with that is, you're gonna run into situations where, you're in a 5v5 like with Dragon, right? And you have an ally running down here. He's 50% HP, and even though his max HP might be 2400, at 50% he has 1200. Your AD has 1500 HP. So it's not saying like the lowest percentage health, it's saying the lowest health. So technically, if you slowed an enemy in that case, they're gonna get that like increased movement speed, the health, and sure, maybe it helps them live in the end. Maybe they're actually already safe and they were never gonna be in danger because you're gonna slow them anyways. And you'd prefer having your AD get the enhanced movement speed so they can kind of kite out and even get like more damage down and play at the edge. That's what you want. But you're not going to get that because you can't control that. I can't control that. This item is amazing for 2v2s and 3v3s because naturally, if I'm trying to go gank, let's say I'm like moving faster because I'm Janna, I get the movement speed increase and everything. And I'm moving faster than my jungler who's like right behind me. And I slow this guy, he's going to get a huge burst of movement speed. He's going to kill that guy. And so in these small skirmishes and situations, Slay is really good. Like, in these small cases, this is really good. Even think of the case of like you're just invading to get some vision down with your jungler, and you're getting some boards out, and they like suddenly engage on you. You slow them, and you can just run the hell out. That's really good. But it's very specific in those things. Like, in order to get that value, you need to be very cognitive of both the range of this. So like how close do they need to be for it to select the lowest health ally, and then also like how do you, because that in the 5v5s that's gonna be super important. In the slower skirmishes it's gonna be less important, but this does enable you to like actually roam more with your jungler and be like a goon squad. And for that, like, that's amazing. I love that. And if you're like building a comp like that, again, and we've seen that before, like you're playing with like Lulu Kindred, um, or even like Braum, Graves, things like this. This item is super interesting, but it's not like universally like amazing. Like I could put it at B tier, or I could put it in situational technically, because it kind of is that. But I want to put these in tiers for now, just based on how universally good they are. And for now, I'm gonna put it at B tier because of the lowest health aspect for fights and the fact that it's a 20-second cooldown. And naturally, it's a 20-second cooldown because it's a huge burst of MS. But you just have to. It just needs to be better to be actually applied in most situations compared to this item. Next, we have Dreammaker. So this one, it's basically like you have two balls rotating around you. And every 8 seconds, if you heal or shield someone, they will get flat damage reduction. And then they'll also get increased magic damage or whatever hit, like whatever attack they use. It could be a spell, it could be an auto attack, whatever. So obviously this works on mages. Like you could use this on like Syndra, and she could go for a Q poke, and she'll get the damage reduction, and she'll get 90 extra damage applied as well. And if she has pen, which she probably will, and things like that, then it will actually be enhanced even more. Okay, that's pretty amazing. What's great about this item is that, so it just says healing and shielding, right? So there's going to be some melee supports and whatever, like Rakan even, that could actually apply this very easily in the middle of the fights and actually grant this damage reduction. But of course, this is going to be very heavily favored towards enchanters because they can apply their shields and the heals a lot more frequently to abuse the 8-second cooldown. And you can imagine, like, you're playing in lane, right? And I'm just moving forward, and I'm just going to shield this guy. He's going to run up. He's going to do a trade. He's not going to take much damage. He's going to do a bunch of damage for one hit and come back. Wait on CD, do it again, and repeat. And if you think about it in like fights, there might be situations where, what is it? B? No, here we go. There might be situations where like this ally is like super low and they're about to die, and you shield, and sometimes that shield wins to keep them alive, right? But the fact that you apply this damage reduction means they do live, and that little bit of extra like time may be the difference maker. And then of course also this item works on all classes. It works on bruisers, it works on mages, it works on everyone. So everyone gains the benefit of this item, and so it makes it a S tier enchanter upgrade. It is just that good. Now, next up, we got Bloodsong. So Bloodsong, think about how the old melee support item that I think it was Evershroud, that enhanced your damage to an enemy when you land CC. This now only requires you to use an ability. It doesn't say you need to hit the ability. It just says you just have to use the ability. So I could be Caitlyn and I could throw my Q, not hit shit. I could literally set a trap down. And if I auto attack someone, it's going to expose them and they're going to take increased damage. This item is very much geared towards obviously spell weaving based champs because of the 1.5-second cooldown. And that means you could technically apply weakness on multiple champs in fights if you spell weave correctly. It does push up, AD champs, like ADC champs, like Caitlyn, like Ashe. There's the really ridiculous Callista versions, but I don't know about that. But this does enhance picks like that. If you're a Pike and you land your Q or something like that, obviously enhanced damage is amazing as well. But of course, and keep in mind, like none of these items are going to give you lethality anyways. So like as your Pike, you're going to choose between these items. But again, to me, Pike will do enough damage with whatever he has that he probably would prefer like the damage reduction just to ensure that he survives better. Because some Pikes, they go Hail of Blades all the time now. But there was a point where he was going like Aftershock to increase survivability. This just does it for him. 40% is insane. So again, like this is very much pushing towards like the ADC base champs. Like Senna would really benefit from this item, right? Like Senna would absolutely love this item. So with that, it's like for these very specific picks, it's a really good item. And probably it's not necessarily their go-to still, but it's good enough that it will be super annoyed in those cases. And then finally, we have like Realm Spike. So Realm Spike, all it is that if you land an ability, like whatever the damage is, it will create a little like circle. I think it's about this big. So like this radius. It'll land that spike, it'll shoot up spikes, and then it'll do whatever damage, right? And that is okay, but it's how do I say it? It's a little underwhelming. Obviously it happens every 9 seconds, so you could like do it twice. And so if you're a very specific mage-based pick, you will definitely like this for like again that if you're really railing lane and winning out that hard, I can see this item just being picked straight up. But as I said, there's just a certain level of just being able to walk up and do damage, and having this as like a safety net just feels really, really, really good. And the damage is not like significant enough that in the case that if you are like not winning, if you're like even just behind, I don't know if I really want to grab this item. If I'm ahead, obviously this will push you even further ahead. But the rule of thumb is that when you're playing ahead, having defensive items is really ideal, because if you're tankier and they don't have enough items to kill you, amazing. If you're squishy, like you're just building more damage, eventually whatever items they have will actually one-shot you or like kill you, right? So again, this is why I have Celestial Opposition so far up. This item is like fine, but it's not like the end all be all. It's not like super incredible. And then another change they have is they have the Wardstone, right? The Vigilant Wardstone. Before, it would give you percent like AP and certain damage. And also, let me open up this here. Okay, so let me just out this real quick. So with this, I just want to show it because I kind of here, Vigilant Warstone. So the main differences with this compared to before, let me put this here. This has 10 more ability haste. As you can tell, this says 20. That's pretty amazing. And you're going to notice a lot of these items they added, it kind of added more ability haste as well. It has armor and MR, which is also very interesting. Like it's actually making you tankier. You will get less HP than before because you don't have the enhanced HP based on level and like the like plus 20%. Again, it has less offensive capabilities. So it's not like how would I say it? It's maybe not necessarily like your favorite kind of item to go to as a like Senna, as a enchanter necessarily, but as a melee player, like a melee pick, this is actually pretty awesome. Again, you get to store more pink wards, and these stats are really ideal. So in the later stages, like pretty interesting, especially if you just want to hold more pink wards. Pretty interesting. But it's not necessarily like an insane item. It's just a pretty good item. Um, I think the first thing I want to look over is there's a lot of enchanter stuff, so let's look over the melee stuff first. So let's start with Zeke's. And I'm gonna be honest right now, there's definitely like changes with these items compared to before. But a lot of the focus I have is just kind of the effects and how that will change your playstyle. So with Zeke's, it gives you a slow effect on the ulti, right? It's what slowing enemies for 30%. And you get like a damage like around you, 5 seconds, 250 damage overall. It's okay. I mean, it's if you think about it, like if you grab someone as Blitzcrank, you press your R and then you have a slowing field around you. Most cases, when you grab him in the first place, he's already pretty much dead. And if you're going Glacial as well, Glacial kind of does what you want it to do. Same with like if you're playing Alistar or like Leona or whatever. If you're going Glacial, like this slow effect is already nullified. Like this doesn't matter. Um, and then the damage part, you never really care so much about it. And mana as a whole is like not like entirely useful as a melee support. Like especially in the later stages, yeah, sure there might be cases where like you could use the mana, but it's not like a stat you're like dying to have. So all in all, this item's like kind of just D tier. It's still like not even significantly interesting to me. You'll get a lot more bang for your buck on other choices. Next up is Knight's Vow. So Knight's Vow, the main changes with this is it basically gives you more armor and less HP, right? Having more armor is already great. I mean, if they're like a pretty heavy AD based team, and then you also have a core carry like an Aphelios or something like that, this is a pretty interesting item to grab, like early on. The build path is fine. It's the same like active, nothing changed there. But this item offers good stats along with that nice kind of like attachment. Makes it very interesting. Even it's just the case that you're playing with like Callista as one of these champions. Like, again, you just kind of enable them to live longer. That is interesting. So Knight's Vow for me kind of moves into like the A tier. Like this is pretty damn good item. Next up, we got Solari. I'm gonna be honest. So Solari, there's really no changes to it. It's like just the same item as is. It offers the shield, whatever. I'm not like in love with this item. Yes, obviously if they have a lot of AoE damage, maybe you pick it up because you just want that shield to help kind of block some of that damage in the end. But I don't know. Like there's gonna be some other options I'll show that will definitely have a little bit more benefit. And it's very much probably going to be placed in the situational because, again, it's mostly just for cases of where they have a lot of AoE damage, like they have a Karthus ulti, right? For this, like this kind of does the job in the single like case. It will do a better job than this in the single case. Next up, so we have. So let me go into this. Sorry. We have Trailblazer. I've talked about Trailblazer before, but the main thing to know about Trailblazer is that so it's going to give you a tailwind. Basically, you're going to be able to move around, and then you'll have a tailwind. The increased movement speed is really nice. It helps you disengage. It has good stats. You know, still decent armor, decent HP. Movement speed is pretty damn good as a melee support. Just want to say that because you can get into flanking positions better and things like that. This kind of becomes an S tier item in a way because it really enables your ability to both give disengage options for retreat options to lead the charge and engages, and to also set yourself up to do those initial engages. And it's going to be a big reason why this is also important is because they actually nerfed Shirelias, and that it's actually pretty bad for uh like melee picks now. So this is kind of like the melee pick version of Shirelias, and so that becomes significantly interesting for them. Next up, so Abyssal Mask saw no changes. It's like an okay item. It's not like something you're going to really actively look to build all the time as a support, but it's decent, right? And then, so FH, I talked about this in the tank tier list. It gives you everything you want. I mean, it gives you a ton of armor. It gives you a good ability haste. It reduces attack speed. It has rock solid still. This item, if you build this, for instance, as Leona, and like you rush this item as Leona, and you're on top of the enemy AD, they're not doing anything. Like this item will let you solo them, and that is really, really annoying. I'm not sure if I'm going to put an S tier, just because like it's not some like this has a lot more benefit because it has HP as well. Again, we talked about how mana is like not necessarily the most important stat for you, but in very specific cases, also this will easily be S tier. For Enchanter stuff, and this is where I'm going to get into it now. So Shirelias, if I go to Shirelias, where is it? So Shirelias here has 20 more AP, has 5 more ability haste, has more mana regen. It does not have HP, which is why melee picks don't really like it. And it looks like I swear to God, they got rid of the movement speed, but it looks like they added it back on, which is pretty incredible. It's still not great for melee picks. Yeah, you can get additional ability power and things like that. And yes, it has 8% movement speed, but this has 5, so it's only 3% difference, not the end of the world. And it's the same active. It's how would I say it? Actually, there's one thing I need to look on this real quick. Because I'm gonna say as a well, I did not type that in right. Okay, it's the same. I just want to check the spell CD or the active CD because I was like, was it 90 seconds before? It's like, no, it's 75. So this item in itself, it doesn't give the benefit of you being able to shield an ally and actually give them movement speed. So for enhancing individuals, not as good as a team beneficial item, and also allowing you to give space because now that you have 8% movement speed added to it or like attached to it, right? The fact that you have that increased movement speed. So yeah, this actually is new. Okay, so I meant to say plus. Okay, I used to meant to say plus. Sorry for the mistake. The fact it says plus 8% movement speed means you can go in and out more individually. Not for your allies, but individually. It means you can keep yourself at a safer distance as well. It's pretty interesting. The stats are really great, right? I mean, the fact that you gain a little bit more ability haste is amazing. It's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. It's pretty damn good. Like it's not meant to individually enhance your allies, which it does suck because that really made your AD like pop out. But this does help champs like because Rakan could benefit from this, and Rakan can also go that damage reduction one. That's really nuts. So that's good. That's definitely really interesting. That's good. Next up we have what do I want to do for this? I should finish these out first. Okay, let's do Mikhail's. So Mikhail's, from what I wrote down, where are you, Mikhail's? So Mikhail's lost some of his shield and ability power, or heal and shield power. It gained 15 ability haste. Again, notice that they're just adding a lot of like ability haste into enchanter items, and they're also adding AP into enchanter items. This is still the same, right? No difference. But the fact that they're adding this ability haste to these like items that didn't have it before, like notice Redemption, they lost 50 HP, but you gained 15 ability haste. It makes these items actually a lot better to rush to like in cases where you really do need the cleanse to give an ally. This is really nice. And the same for Redemption in a sense, like, you know, the active is good, But the fact that like it didn't have this and it felt kind of it didn't feel the best to really get this early is something you kind of prefer to get later on. Makes these items better now to actually get early on. And I'm not gonna lie, it literally puts them like yes, you don't get ability powers, so you're gonna miss out on some like conversions, but these item actives are very powerful. Um, and it puts them at a high tier. Next up, we have staff of the flowing water. Because like if I throw these down, these are like your HP based ones, so you get a little bit tankier, and you also add like some survivability. You have staff of the flowing water, which where were these? This has 5 more AP, no MS now, but again, 15 ability haste. It has more mana regen, and I'm going to tell you why it has more mana regen in a little bit. But also the active, it doesn't give you ability haste now, it gives you MS. And then it's also 30 flat AP. It's not 30 to 45 scaling. So the item overall is weaker. It's not as nearly good as prior. But remember, Shirelia's got nerfed, right? Shirelia's got nerfed in a sense that it no longer gives MS to an ally. This does. And it also gives them AP. And it still gives you good ability haste. So even though this item has its very specific cases of like giving like everyone like this enhanced movement speed and giving yourself individual movement speed, and maybe it's I might say it's an A tier because also the fact that it gives you 8%, you can go the damage reduction enhanced support item. Trailblazer, it'll be good for some picks, and then this will also be good for other picks just because of that damage reduction on that other item. This item, giving you the enhanced like movement speed towards an ally, means this is a lot more geared towards enhancing your AD, not necessarily enhancing like your AP picks, which is kind of amazing for you in a way because now it's like, okay, I'm gonna get, yeah, it's not like insane kind of item, but it makes it good enough to be like, okay, I actually will just grab this for like my ally just to fight forward. Also, I just realized this video, we'll see. This might end in an hour because that's typically how practice tool works. Yup. Of course. Amazing. All right. Love it, right? Give me 1 second. That is just so unfortunate. I couldn't get through the video fully in time for that, but it's fine. We'll get through this real quick. We'll just grab Alice or whatever. So Staff of the Flowing Water, like I'm very tempted on putting it in A tier in that. Also, I should probably put this in situational, by the way. Because like, you're still going to mostly build it in the case where there's a significant like CC effect. So you want to have that. But this does make it a better rush item before. Like you might build it and you're like, well, shit, I have McHale's, it's great. Like, I mean, it's good for you, but it's not really great for me. But now it's good for everyone. And then Redemption is honestly rather good. There's probably going to be better support items compared to it for enhancing individual allies, but for team fights and certain picks, again, if you're a melee pick, this is a pretty good item. HP and ability haste. This is a pretty good item. So it becomes an A tier. Let's finish the rest of this, guys. So that's Staff of the Flowing Water. We have Ardent. So if we have Ardent here, it gains 15 AP. It gives you a little bit more MS. Again, notice like this has 8% MS. So does Shirelia's, and then so does the Staff doesn't have any, right? But like these two have 8% MS. If you think about it, like in some ways you could build both these items and get a ton of movement speed, and that in itself can be really annoying to deal with against a support who has that. Increased movement speed, more mana regen, it costs more gold. And then the active, it's 5% more attack speed, and it's actually 5 more on hit. This item is kind of nuts. Like, as an individual build first item, it seems kind of OP. Like, if I'm an enchanter, oops, not this item. And I look at this, I'm like, yeah, I'll grab that. I'll just grab that. That's kind of insane. um, if it turns into a case where like building this item first, I don't think it's going to be necessarily like how Arden was before, where like it was really OP. But it's if I look at the other items that I want to grab, I probably will build this first as an enchanter over the others. Um, Next up, we have Imperial Mandate. So this is quite different than before. So I have more AP, more regen. It's actually a longer CD in between the procs. It was 6 seconds before, now it's 9 seconds. And the proc damage is now based on current life versus like a flat amount. Uh, it has its pros and cons because obviously if you land mandate damage, like the procs, and you get poked on and it's 100% HP target, yeah, the damage is gonna be pretty good on the like initial picks, right? Like, but the thing is, over time, it's gonna get worse, and that's like where some of the value of mandate comes in with certain picks. Is like, oh shit, like we're getting like multiple procs. This is like doing really well. Yeah, it loses its value over time, and it kind of makes it situational, but in a way, it also kind of makes it. You'd have to do the math on it, because also in a lot of cases, you'll remember that like if you'll hit like an Astro and you proc mandate, um, you're kind of just looking for burst. But then at that point, is it better just going something else? Is I don't know. I'm really unsure of this item because I can see cases of where if you're playing a poke based comp that it gains that value, but is the item like it was before where you're gonna like actively try to proc like it's just I don't think it's just gonna have the same level of impact. Now, I will say, and I can't remember exactly actually, now that I think about it. If I look up mandate, I see check this real quick. So okay, so it still has the movement speed bonus, everything. That's still the same. I don't know. I think I'm gonna leave it at B tier for now because it just doesn't feel that crazy. Next up we have where is it? I'm lost in sauce. Oh, here we go. So echoes. So echoes. Where is this item? So echoes, so it says 10 more AP, 5 more ability haste. It actually has another shard stack, which is very interesting. I'm not 100% sure if the heal is the same because it might be based on the fact that you have 3 shards and you get 60 health. It does seem like it's slightly better. No one really built this because the item kind of lacked in. I mean, it just didn't really have that much impact and usage in fights overall. So you have to deal damage and then you have to actually like shield or do something. And most of the time, you're playing Lulu or whatever, like that's not going to happen too often. Like it's very geared into very specific champs like Karma or whatever. And of course, obviously, there's cases where Alistar can use this or whatever, or like Rakan, right? But it doesn't really feel. The stats are really good. Let me just say that, like, for building this item for just stats' sake, it's good. But when I look at the other items that you will want to build over this, you're probably gonna build over this. And so it's like a D tier item, honestly. Nothing too fancy. If you look at this item, okay, so it actually does have the enhancement. That's interesting. Wow. It didn't show that before. Okay. So for Moonstone, has less AP. I don't know what I said, -3 AP. I don't know what I was cooking, but based on what I said here, it has less AP, more HP, more mana regen. The passive is a little bit better than before. 5% heal, 5% shield. I did say no longer amplifies single target. It actually does. You just have to hold shift and it shows it. So that's good that it still has that, and so it's like 2200 for a more burst increase of like healing and shielding, which is fine. Um, but again, it's like, uh, do I value this a lot more over the others? I can see how the healing can actually be rather good for like you're playing Janna, right? With the R, the monsoon. Maybe cases where like Karma can be good too, right? But you're gonna want to get Staff because you want the movement speed increase. You're gonna want to get Ardent. You're maybe you want to get Shirelia's with this, but keep in mind you're a support player, so it's not like you're gonna have room to have like a ton of items. So yeah, like you're gonna be very, very picky. Um, I just don't see Moonstone being like that crazy still. Like these items just seem significantly better. Like I might even move this to like A tier still because of the increased movement speed is so nice for like enhancing your AD jam. Um, and then finally, what do we got? Okay, so we got two AP items. So we have Morello's. I mean, we've seen Morello's before. It's like fine. I mean, it's a ton of AP for not much damage, or for a ton of AP for not much gold. It has ability haste, which is good too, and obviously it's strictly for champions like Brand, Zerath, whatever. It's not really targeted towards, um, like there's no Chemtech Putrefier. So like if you're gonna get healing reduction, it basically would come from this. And it probably, I mean, obviously I'll put it in a situation. I don't think it's like an item you're really gonna go to too often. Uh, but it's not bad. I mean, seriously, it's really not that bad to have and be able to nab in a way. Um, for Dawn Core, so this is like the best way I can describe this is like the decap version of support items. So it's gonna give you increased healing and shield power. It's gonna give you increased ability power based on your mana regen, and then also it's gonna give you summer haste spell, which is again, if you're gonna go Dawn Core eventually, that is really beneficial to have if you're gonna go like flash heal, right? Or flash exhaust, stuff like that. Like for ignite, who cares, right? But if you're getting a little bit more defensive, enabling summoner, this is good. And I've done the math of it. Where is it? For Dawn Core, where's this sucker? Oh, here it is. So the item, and this is including the mana regen you get from it, so I'm including that into this factor, is almost 100% gold efficient. And you're never going to build this first. It's a terrible item to build first because it has no active or anything like that. But if you get into these later stages of the game, this item will actually be very useful. Uh, it has reasonable stats. And yeah, the mana regen is not something you necessarily, well, it will actually matter in some cases because if you do have enough CDR, it will like change that. But Dawn Core in itself, in the later stages, is a pretty damn good item. Like if you don't need the flat heal from Redemption, you don't need Mikhail's, like you're not really benefiting from like a ton of like super enhanced shielding, and Mandate's already like kind of whatever. Um, this item is really, really good. Like very, very good. And this is like I just want to show a conclusion and like overall scope of how this looks based on melees versus enchanters. So this item will be very defining for again like most picks because you can go into maybe even more AP based items maybe as melee picks to enhance your damage and play off this, and that is a very interesting idea. And it's just one like it's a theorized idea, and that's why I'm not like shaping my items solely off this alone. Um, but it is this is going to be very significant. The fact that, as you can tell, a lot of enchanter items are good. Like a lot of like items that are geared towards like the range picks are really good. They like almost all of them offer ability haste. So already you're gonna have a unlike other like archetypes, a lot of archetypes have less ability haste. Like Riot took away ability haste from other items. for enchanter items, they actually gave ability haste. So they can benefit from Shirelias, they can benefit from like staff, they can benefit from ardent, like, and keep in mind again, you're not going to build like a ton of items as support, so naturally having like if your top items are all up here, that's pretty awesome. As a melee player, you know, already if the enchant like if the how would I say it? If the support item works the way it works, like with the execution not being there, with not getting as much gold from like killing minions, and you're getting to your items slower, that is definitely going to take effect into like how the meta is going to shape up, right? Like your items are not going to be as good, or you're not going to have as OP items as enchanters, and the enchanters going to get to the like their items first. We're going to have an issue. I think the actives are really interesting. Like the 5 like things they added are actually all pretty reasonable. Obviously, like a few are like miles better in like an overall scope, but regardless, they did a good job with this. Um, Again, I think melee players have less to play around and like enjoy compared to enchanters, but a lot of it will weigh on whether this item will define how you can shape the rest of your other items. Thanks for watching.